Hello, and welcome to the Wedding Pro podcast, the podcast where we share tips and tricks for wedding vendors and couples, share insight into the wedding world, and share about our experiences. We are Gracie and Angela Felix of Felix Wedding Films. We are so glad you tuned into this week's episode. Now let's get into it. Hello, and welcome back to the Wedding Pro podcast. I'm so excited for this week's episode. We are continuing in our series that's called What Wedding Vendors Wish You Knew. This week, we have Lety Altam Photography on, and she is going to share what wedding photographers wish you knew. This is going to be a really great episode for both couples and wedding vendors. She's going to kind of peel back the curtain, share some misconceptions that people have when it comes to photography. She's going to share a little bit of her perspective, and I know that everyone's going to really love it. We absolutely love Lety. We love working with her. Her work is just so beautiful. It's so artful, and she's just such a kind person. So we're excited to have you on the podcast, Lety. If you want to share a little bit about yourself to the listeners, share a little bit about, when you started, where you're based, where you work, what you love about what you do, anything you want to share, we would love to hear it.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. You guys are so sweet and amazing for inviting me. I really appreciate it. Well, I'm Lety, hence Lety Altam Photography, and I've been doing photography for professionally, about 9 years, but weddings, 6 years. I'm based in Georgia, but I would say 90% of my work is destination. Would love more weddings in Georgia, but I would say like my career had just taken me in other locations, which I'm not mad at. I feel like a lot of people love destination, but I am a mom, so I get a little sad when I'm away from my kiddos for too long. And I would say that my work, you did a great job describing it. But yeah, I would say it's refined editorial with like a hint of documentary, just because I do want my couples to have, those moments that unfold naturally.
Yeah, I love that. For our listeners, so that we worked with Lety not too long ago at a wedding, and it was just so amazing working with you. You're so talented, but you're also very calm and just so easy to collaborate with. And obviously, like for the photo video team, that's so important. And so when we were thinking about photographers to have on, that was something that we had in mind. It has to be someone who has beautiful work, is a really sweet person, but also is collaborative. So we're excited to have you on.
Thank you. Your words mean so much, and I enjoyed working with you guys. And I think that's super important when photo and video get along
Yeah,
and work together. We're there for, the same purpose, which is the couple.
yeah. And we will definitely talk more about the photo video dynamic later. But I'd love to first kind of speak to couples. I'm going to ask you some questions that relate more directly towards couples. And then later on, we'll talk specifically towards vendors because I'm sure, a lot of different vendors would love to learn more about photography and what goes into just being a wedding photographer. So to start off, what do you think are some common misconceptions that couples specifically have when it comes to wedding photography?
I have a lot.
We love to hear them.
Yes, I have a lot. I was thinking about that. But I think one of the biggest one, and maybe, it goes for both like photo and video, is when they say, "Oh, my friend has a good camera and they're willing to do photos or, video." Or another one, I'll name a few, is we just slap a filter onto the photos. Uh, yes, which, we don't. We take a lot of time. And assuming that we just work on the wedding day, which is, like one of the biggest ones. We don't. There's more that goes into it. It's just not the wedding day. I would say that's like my 3, but there's a lot more.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I definitely think, like, photo and video, we go through a lot of the same things. Obviously, they're different, but, we hear some of the same things. So, I like that you said that, couples sometimes think we just work on the wedding day, like, "Oh,
Yes.
it was just 8 hours of coverage. It was just 10 hours of coverage. Like, why does it cost XYZ?" What are some of the other things that couples don't really understand that photographers have to do before, during, after the wedding? Whatever you wanna share about, like, the overall process, not just, like, the hours of coverage.
No, yeah. I mean, we start, and I'm sure you understand this, literally as soon as they inquire. We're just not, I know I don't, people do, and it's everyone works different, but I don't have like a template when it comes
Mhm.
to emailing.
Yeah.
I literally respond to all my inquiries, just, making sure that it's personal to them. So it's literally from the first day they inquire and then the whole booking process. That goes into what also they're paying. They're paying for like a whole experience. They're just not paying, well, to me, they're not just paying for the day. We, take hours in making sure, we work alongside with the planners, with, timelines, also like family shot lists, editing, which, we both do.
Yeah.
And it's just not 1 hour, and we just don't
No.
slap a filter on our photos. Sometimes I feel like that's what couples don't understand when we're editing. That is what, we take most time with. I know I do, and I'm super particular when I edit, so I'm just not slapping that filter that everybody thinks we do. We take time because we want to make sure, we're working with the light and, the environment we were in on that day because the wedding just doesn't take place in one spot. So we definitely take our time. And that goes into, not just assuming we're there just for the wedding day. And even after the wedding, we're communicating with like our couple to make sure, the gallery that they received is good. If they want any changes, of course, we're not going to, do like a redo of the whole gallery unless they're super unhappy with it, which fortunately I haven't had that. But I would say that we're literally working since they inquired until like a little bit after we deliver the final product.
Yeah, our process is pretty similar as well. We don't automate anything, so
Yeah.
it just, adds extra time, but it adds to the couple's experience because it's more personalized. And I've actually added up like the average time that we put into each wedding, like beforehand, during the wedding, and then after the fact. Honestly, it kind of surprised me. It was around like 50 hours. Which, I know that for some photo video teams, it could be a little less, it could be a little more, but I mean, I'm sure your processes are pretty similar. So that's a lot of hours of coverage.
Yes. And I feel especially when you're wanting to giving your couple like a good experience, you're just not rushing. Which, I
Hmm.
know some people have like a fast turnaround. No, kudos to everyone that does. But I know I don't, just because I take my time and I want to make sure that they're getting a product that I'm happy with and that's gonna, deliver what they're expecting, if that makes sense. If you have like really good fast turnaround, hey, that's good too. I mean, some people, I have kids, so that also plays a big part.
Yeah, it definitely does. What do you feel like are some really good ways that couples could get like the most out of their wedding photography experience or like wedding photos? I know it's a very general question, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I would say just making sure that you connect with your photographer and just setting realistic expectations when it comes to like your wedding and your wedding photos. Going I think one of the things that my couples, and I love that they do this, but also I talk to them and I'm like, they'll send me, Pinterest photos and inspo. I'm not sure if, like you have couples, they'll send you like videos and be like, I want this. But you kind of have to educate them and you have to be like, hey, if you want certain things and for you to get the most out of like the final product, it's just be you and making sure that you have that connection with your photographer or videographer because if you don't, then you're not going to get, what you're expecting. And your photos are just not going to feel what you were wanting them to feel on
Yeah.
my experience with that. And just setting like a realistic, um, also timeline when it comes to like your whole wedding day. If you only want like an 8 hour coverage, but you have so much going on, photo and video, it's not, we're not gonna be able to get all that if you're just wanting, you're limiting yourself to a certain time because you're trying to stay into that budget, but that's a whole nother subject. But that's what I would say. Just like, trust the process. Trust your photographer. Um, and go into your wedding day just enjoying each other and let it unfold. I feel like that's how you're gonna get the best out of like your wedding or your wedding photos or video.
Yeah. I completely agree, 100%. I like,
Yes.
I mean, literally everything that you said. I'm gonna ask a few follow-up questions from basically everything that you said. But first, you said something about, I think you said something about like Pinterest or shot lists. So I'd love to know, like, what are your thoughts on couples giving you shot lists? Obviously, they're going to give you a family shot list. That makes sense. But what about like full wedding day shot lists or like must have Pinterest poses? Do you feel like photographers appreciate that and it's helpful? Or do you feel like that actually hinders creativity? And like, what are your thoughts on that? I have my own.
Yeah. And I would love to hear them too. Um, I personally don't like the whole day shot list. I love the family shot list just because, we're getting the most important people in your life, making sure we get those photos. But when it comes to like the whole day, really, I do feel like it renders into being like ourselves as creatives. And I would say if you give me a shot list, I'm going to be thinking about it. I'm going to be thinking about it. I'm like, what did I miss? And I'm not going to be fully involved with capturing like what's unfolding because we're too worried about the shot list. Now, I don't mind if my couples give me like, like a mood board and they're like, Letty, this is what, this is our vision, this is what we love. But this is where communication and education comes into play because you have to educate your couples. Like, hey, you're giving me a mood board or a shot list, and maybe these things are not gonna happen. Or, timelines most of the time run behind. And it can really, mess up the shot list, I would say. But going back to the mood boards, just educating your couples and letting them know like half of these poses, well, half of these photos are posed. They're they're not candidates.
Yeah.
And it's something that I feel like it's going around, that I see that couples are like, "We really want these photos." And I'm like, "Well," and, they say we want like a candid or documentary
Mm, yeah.
photographer. And I'm like, "Well, these photos are staged, are, even if like giving a little bit direction or post." So, I mean, I don't mind them, but you just have to educate and have communication with your couple. And shot lists, I mean, if it makes the couple, you know, comfortable or that's what they truly want, then they can. But I know I would say, like, I'm not your photographer because then you're not letting me be, like, creative. We can work together and, see what is gonna work on the day, but to go based off, like, a full day shot list, to me is, I would say, not my favorite thing, and
Yeah.
I would say they're not, like, the right couple for me, if that makes sense. And I feel like I've done such a good job with, like, my brand that it kinda lets couples know, like, "Hey, Letty work," "I work this certain way," and it's okay if it doesn't work with them and they want a full day shot list just because they might be a very, like, type A person.
Yeah. I mean, I have very, very similar thoughts as well. Completely agree with all of that. We personally don't receive many shot lists, but we have before, and it's definitely something that I feel like kind of hinders creativity because, like you said, we're always going to be looking back at that list like, oh my gosh, did we get this? Did we get that? Did we miss this? Oh my gosh, we got to get it. But it's like, oh, this beautiful, sweet moment is unfolding over here naturally,
Yeah.
but we're focused on the shot list,
Shot.
which, like I said, thankfully doesn't happen that much. And we love like input from our couples on what moments are most important to them and like who is most important to them, things like that. And then we just ask that they trust us. And I know that that's a very similar way that you work as well. So, I definitely, for couples listening, definitely recommend not doing full day shot lists and just like picking a photographer that you trust. You love their work and you trust that they're going to do a great job. I think that's the best way to go.
Definitely pick someone that you truly trust. I think that's the biggest thing, just because, and also you feel comfortable. You don't want to be with someone that you're not comfortable with. As photographers and videographers, that's the vendor that you're going to be with most of the day, if not the whole day. So you definitely want to make sure you trust them and you feel comfortable. And I feel like that's what's going to make your photos the best because you're going to feel comfortable and you're going to feel like you can be yourself.
Yeah, I completely agree. And you kind of answered my next question, but feel free to elaborate if you want. I was going to ask, what do you feel like are some important things that couples could overlook when booking their photographer? Obviously, majority of couples are looking for someone that's going to fit their budget. That's great. Or, they love their work. That's great too. But like what all should go into how a couple chooses their photographer? You mentioned like personality, feeling comfortable, trust. Do you feel like there's anything else that like if you could give couples advice, they should do this when looking for their photographer?
I think also look into experience. You definitely want to make sure you are hiring someone that has experience, unless you're very into like making sure you stick to a certain budget. But even so, definitely look into a photographer that has experience shooting. Um, not someone that just picked up a camera. So, make sure you're doing homework, you're talking to, you know, not just one photographer. And that's one thing I always tell my couples when they do like an inquiry call with me. Even if you don't choose me, please make sure that you have someone that's going to be experienced, has done a wedding, or has, helped out, had mentoring, or gone with other photographers as a second shooter because I know we all start somewhere, but making sure that they have experience and you're feeling comfortable going back to that. I just feel like that's super important and someone that's calm because when it comes to weddings, they can be a little crazy and you don't want someone that doesn't work well with pressure. I feel like that's super important because multiple things happen during the wedding day, and you want someone that's going to stay calm, that's going to know what to do when certain things come into play. We're also working with like a lot of vendors. You want to make sure that you have someone that gets along well with others. they are nice and kind, and at the end want the best for you as a couple.
Yeah, I completely agree. As like from a videographer's perspective, I love that you basically said, someone who's kind and collaborative, because obviously we always work with a photographer. Photographers don't always work with a videographer, but obviously that collaboration is so important. And I would say the majority of the photographers we work with are incredible, but there are some where they're just not team players or they're not kind, and it makes the whole day difficult for
Yes.
just like the photo video team. Sometimes the couples can notice. I will say, obviously, like, we are always team players and we're kind even if someone else
You are.
isn't. But it just, if you can find someone who is calm, like you said, not going to bring the drama, and like
Mhm.
collaborative, along with, of course, professional experience, in budget, or at least close to budget, and you love their style, I feel like that could be a really good fit for you.
Yeah, it's definitely important. It sets the mood for the whole day. If your photographer is not a, nice person, people pick up. People will pick up on it, and also not being nice to other vendors. I feel like make sure you choose someone that initially you can tell, and also read reviews. That's super important. Someone that's gonna be professional at the end of the day, because that's who you're hiring, a professional, and you want them to stay a professional during your wedding day with you as a couple and other vendors as well, especially working together.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. I'd love to shift the conversation a little bit, still talking to couples, but I'd love it if you could share, for couples who might be looking for their photographer or wondering how far in advance they should book their photographer. What is your best recommendation for couples to start searching, start booking, not waiting too long, but also not, reaching out way too early?
I think a good timing would be 8 to 12 months. I know there's a big shift going on in the industry right now when it comes to like couples booking your vendors. I've definitely seen a change, but if you're really wanting like a specific photographer or vendor, definitely I would say reach out as soon as possible, just 'cause I've seen, and not just for me, but when couples reach out and it's so sad to tell them like, "Oh, I'm already booked." So, I mean, typically it's 8 to 12 months. That's what I would recommend. I know everyone is different, but if you're able to reach out to them, a month after your proposal, that'll be amazing, just because we do get booked pretty fast. I would say photo and video and the planners are one of like the first ones that couples are booking. But I do see the change now that there's couples that are having shorter engagements. So they're booking, I would say I've had a couple of couples that their engagement has been only, like, less than a year, and they're wanting to get married within that year. So, yeah, I would say as soon as possible, or as soon as you're ready to book your photographer.
Yeah, I feel like for video, it's relatively similar as well. And my personal preference is that couples book us 12 months or less in advance, because at least for us, if couples are reaching out like a year and a half in advance or 2 years, it's like a lot of times our books aren't even open that far in advance, because just for a lot of different reasons. But yeah, I love the 8 to 12 months is really great. We've definitely seen last minute bookings all the time for video specifically. So sometimes it's like 1 month out and I'm like, wow, we actually have that date available. So great. Sometimes, a lot of times we don't, but so For photo video, reach out as soon as you can.
Yes.
Couples, try not to wait until the last minute, but even if you do, still reach out because, maybe we might be available.
Yeah, you never know. We might have it open, so definitely don't think, "Oh, they look so busy, I'm not gonna reach out, I'm pretty sure they're booked." No, reach
Yeah.
out to us. I think that's the best that you can do. Because I mean, what what can hurt? I mean, the only thing is it's a no, but it's better for you to ask than not to ask, and later on find out that we were available for your date.
Yeah. Mhm. I would love it if you could share your perspective on like why couples should hire planners and why that's like so important, specifically, obviously for photo and video, but you can speak specifically about photo.
I feel like this is, like, my biggest advice to couples.
Yeah. Same.
I'm like, "Please, please, please hire a planner." I will die for the planners. That's how hard I would go for them. I mean, they will save you, honestly. They'll save you, they'll save your whole day. Um, they just make the day flow. I know maybe, to them, they're like, "Oh no," or, the day is just like it goes crazy. But for you as a couple and for your other vendors, it just makes the day flow easy and just makes it like just a day go better. You don't want your photographer or video, because I've seen, you don't want to rely on them to be your planners. And, it just doesn't make sense. Well, to me, it doesn't. But I feel like it's so important for you just to hire a planner because they will help you if you're working with like a budget. They're going to help you stay within that budget. They're going to make communication easy when it comes to you and your vendors on your wedding day. You're not going to have to worry if you're missing a payment or chairs got delivered to the wrong venue or you got the wrong chairs or anything. Your planner is going to be the one that's going to basically take care of all that. I've seen it. I've seen some amazing planners save the day. Uh, I had a crazy wedding experience where it was like raining and the tent almost flew away. But if it wasn't for the planner, like it would have been like chaos. She made the day definitely work out because just the way that it was going. Yeah, she definitely just made the day go, you know, just made it work. Seeing what they do, I definitely have so much respect for them. And I always tell my couples, please, please, please make sure you hire a planner. It's so important. They're going to make sure your timeline just flows and that you have a timeline.
Yeah.
Early in my career, and this is not to say like no, negative or anything, but I've had weddings where there's no planners and I've seen the difference. I've seen how stressed out the couples get and how the day goes and going back to they rely on photo and video to kind of just like let them know like, oh, what comes next. And that's not really our job. We're there to make sure we're capturing the day as it goes. So if we're focusing on timeline that, what's coming next or, what other vendors are doing, then we can't do our job. So yeah, you definitely make sure you find someone that you love and that they're going to make sure that your wedding is going to be amazing. I can't stress enough. Please hire.
Yeah. I completely agree about just everything that you said. That is such an important thing. And I want to make the distinction that wedding planners are different than venue coordinators. And if you have a venue coordinator, I don't want to, knock any venue
Yeah.
coordinators because some of them actually do, very few, but some of them actually do act like planners and do the job that a planner would do. But I would say that's like 5%. And the rest of them, they're just managing the venue. So if
Yeah.
you have a venue coordinator, just assume the role of the planner will be on mainly the photographer and then also the videographer. And like Letty said, that, it's not our job. We will support you how we can, but it takes away from us capturing the day as it's unfolding beautifully, capturing all the candid moments because we're focused on, okay, what's next? Do we need to move you here? Do we need to go there? Is
Mhm.
everything on time? Like, do we need to rush people? It's just not ideal.
Yes, it's really not. It just, I've seen the stress that couples get when they don't have a planner or even when they have a day of. Like you said, it's really not the same thing. There there's that 1% that really do care about how the day is going, but most are kind of there to make sure, nothing happens to the venue or, you know, um they're not really much involved in the whole like planning process. So they're kind of like clueless on certain stuff, right? And not to blame them or anything, but that's why you get like a full service planner. They're there from the start and they know how things are supposed to go that day and they're able to manage it. So yeah, can't stress
Yeah.
enough.
This will definitely have to be a topic one day on the podcast because I know that so many photographers, specifically and videographers, like have a lot to say about this topic.
Yes, I feel like it can be like a whole episode
Oh,
of
yeah.
why you should hire a planner. I mean, I can go on and on, but yeah, couples, please, if you're able to, I know it comes sometimes down to budget, but if you're able to get a full service planner, please do. They will save the day, they will save your vendors, and they will save you from a lot of stress. And that's, I tell my couples, like, you want to stick to a certain budget, your planner will help you.
Yes. Awesome. Well, before we transition to kind of talking to vendors, do you have any hot takes when it comes to how couples approach working with their wedding photographer or just hot takes that have to do with couples in general?
Hot takes. Oh my goodness. Um, there's a few. I would say, I think going back to thinking that a relative can be a vendor. Also, another one when they don't credit their vendors, that's a hot take. And going to one that I feel like it's been going around in the internet of them not providing a hot meal for their vendors. Um, I've seen some videos, especially on TikTok, some couples, saying like, why should we feed our vendors? And it's not us being demanding, or, us being, I don't know, what's the word, greedy or just wanting to jump into like making sure that we get fed first before the guests. I don't feel like that's the reason at all. But yeah, I feel those are some hot takes. And also another one, I think budgets. When you are putting this Pinterest board and you're getting Jose Vigas photos on there and you're like, I want these photos. But you have a 2K budget for your photographer and get upset that we're charging 10K, 15K, or, a certain amount that's above 2K. You get upset and you start bashing us. You start saying like, "Oh, why are, photographers video charging so much?" But you're also giving us inspiration from really top photographers and videographers. Um, that you're like, well, if you want that quality of work, there is a price tag. Yeah, I feel like that's some of my hot takes. But I can go.
Yeah. I'm sure, yeah. I see all of those on social media. Thankfully, we don't personally see them as much with like people inquiring with us,
Mhm.
but we definitely see them on, Instagram, TikTok. And I'm always like, oh my goodness, I'm steering clear of these couples.
Yes, and it's sad because I know it comes down to education, but also I feel like as a couple, I would want to respect people. And, if a certain photographer charges a certain amount, like that's fine. But also going back to like, we do have to educate them that we're just not there on the wedding day. And, we can go on when it comes to that. But yeah, I feel like that's some of like the little hot takes. I know I said a little bit more like social media.
That's okay. We love it. Awesome. Well, I'd love to transition now to speaking to vendors, which couples that are listening, I think this part will still be very interesting to you because you'll get to see, like, behind the curtain. So I'd love it if you could share what you think some common misconceptions are that vendors have about the role of the wedding photographer or just photography in general.
I feel like one of common misconceptions when it comes to photographers is we're only there for us, and we're just there like to get our shots, which I feel like it's not true, because I've heard it, um we hear so much stuff about us, and I'm like, well, no, we're actually there, for the couple. We're not just there just to get like our own shots. Especially in the world that we're living in with like social media, everyone wants to get like the perfect shot, the Instagram shot. um but I feel like that's one of like the misconceptions that a lot of people have when it comes to photographers.
Do you have any advice for how videographers specifically can work better with photographers? I know that you are so sweet when working with us videographers, but give us, all the tea. Give us the advice because we know that there's plenty of videographers that are either newer or just don't really have the social awareness when working with a photographer. So, like, what can we do better?
I think okay, so I'm gonna go in a little
Do it.
more into this. Your ego, put your ego down. And I'm yes, put your ego down. And I'm not, I mean, I've worked with you, Gracie, and you're amazing. And I feel that it goes more towards male videographers. I've had experiences with male videographers that basically look down on me just because I'm maybe, I don't know, just because I'm a female, maybe. Um, but just their ego, like they think they're there to like run the show. We're not allowed to like speak, and they're gonna give, direction throughout the whole day. So I do feel like they have to stop with the egos. I'll give you a little tea about, videographers, something that happened to me early. Well, I wouldn't say like early in my career, but I think this happened like right COVID year, 2020. I was doing a wedding and a videographer didn't introduce himself to me, and that kind of already set the tone. They just like walked in, looked at me and my second shooter and didn't say a word. I was just like, "Hi," walked away, and I was like, "Okay." During the ceremony, I was I won't say where because then a lot of people are gonna start adding,
Yeah.
adding the clues. But we were at a venue. It started raining. We had to move to Plant B. Plant B had a very, very dark ceremony location. So, of course, as photographers, I love to use flash. So I was like, I'm going to use my flash. There was a little bit of like spotlights. Um, but he put like this very bright spotlight on, down the aisle, and comes up to me and he's like, "Why are you gonna use flash?" And I was just like, "Oh,
Because
well."
I'm a photographer.
Yeah, I was like, "Well, for my photos." And I said it more nicely. I was like, "Oh,
Yeah,
I just want to make sure that the photos come out, right?" He's like, "You have the spotlight. You don't need any more lighting." And, I was just like, "Okay."
not really how that works.
Yeah, and I was just like, "Okay." And he took that very wrong, apparently, and he was like, "You must not know who I am. People pay for my advice." And I was just like, thank goodness the bride's grandma was nearby. She heard and, like she told the bride and she's like, I didn't like, because the way that he was, speaking to me was very rude. And, I was just like, we're here to work as a team. Like his ego like really went up there. And he's like, you must not know what you're doing. Like, what camera are you even using? You don't need to use flash. I have my lights. And I'm like, well, you don't know my style. And that comes down to another thing working with videographers, but I took it as like, hey, like you don't know my style. Like maybe, I'm heavy like flash focus and I want, and the bride loves that. So you don't know if the bride asked me to use flash, right? So definitely like putting down like your ego and your know-it-all attitude away and just working alongside the photographers what's going to make, just an easy day. But that's a little tea of what happened to me when I came to a videographer. And I'm not gonna lie, after that, I was like, can't stand videographer.
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting to hear your perspective because obviously we're videographers. We don't have the experience of working with other videographers unless we're like, doing them a favor second shooting for them.
Yeah.
So it's so interesting to hear that like they'll come in with an ego because obviously Angelo and I, don't, and like the people that we're connected with don't have egos. So I can kind of see now why some photographers do kind of have a little bit of a bad taste when it comes to videographers. But this kind of leads into actually a listener question from a videographer. And this person wanted to know the photographer's perspective. And they asked, why do you think some photographers don't like working with videographers? And I feel like that kind of answered the question because, if someone's coming in with an ego or like trying to run the show, it's like, what the heck? No, we're supposed to collaborate. Like,
Yes. You're giving an experience that's not a good experience. So then we're leaving with a bad taste, right? We're thinking like, oh, are all, especially when you're kind of like early in your career and you get this experience like of a videographer that has like a very strong ego or doesn't really work well with other vendors, then that makes you kind of like, oh, well, I don't want to work with videographers, or you kind of have like your guard up and you're like, well, how are they going to work? And you're not very like, giving them like a warm welcome. Sorry. So you're kind of just like standoffish. And then the videographer might think, well, geez, that photographer's mean. So, it's like a back and forth thing. But yeah, I would say that definitely gave me like a bad taste in my mouth about videographers until, I started meeting like really like you guys are one of them, like very like kind, and also like welcoming. Definitely felt it on the wedding that we did. But like I said, when you have like a bad experience, it really leaves like a bad taste in your mouth. And you kind of just like see videographers as like, oh, they're, they have this big ego and they don't like to work well with photographers. So yeah, I feel like it's gotten better.
yeah. And hopefully as like you're moving up in the industry, that's the best way that I can say it. Hopefully the videographers that you're working with are more professional, which I mean that guy that you talked about was very advanced in his career, but not very professional. But from what I gather, I feel like as videographers gain more experience working with photographers, working in weddings, I would hope that they would, you know, be more professional, be more collaborative. But obviously, there's in every industry, in every single vendor category, there's going to be those people that are just not very
Er,
kind.
yes. And I'm just like, I always ask myself why. Like, going back to we're there to work as a team. We're there for the couple. And I feel like this is where the couples also have to do a little homework on choosing a videographer and photographer that work well and also kind of have like the same style. I'm gonna When you choose someone that maybe, a photographer, for instance, myself, I do more like editorial work, and then they choose a very like documentary videographer, it's gonna clash a little because then, they're wanting their certain style, and then it's gonna take up more time because I'm like, oh no, well, I don't want them doing this certain thing, then I'm taking up more time when it comes to, timeline and stuff, but that's another spill.
Yeah,
Yeah. But like
awesome.
you said, as we're moving up, I have seen a difference. I've seen a difference when it comes to videographers that I've worked with recently that are just very professional, very welcoming, and they're always um I've had someone that's like, "Letty, do you want me to carry your book bag?" You don't have to do that, but just being very, like just very caring or, welcoming with each other, just getting along. You're there for the couple at the end of the day, and just to give a vibe that, you're there because you're the best. And um it's gonna, the couple I feel like the couples can tell at the end of the day, like, had another bad experience recently with a
Oh
videographer that
gosh.
got drunk.
Oh my gosh. That's bad.
And my couple could tell, my couple was like, "What is going on?" And he was kind of rude to me and the content creator, and the couples can tell. Like they really can. So you have to make sure that you're on your best behavior, and you're there to work as a team at the end of the day. I'm like, I feel like I have so much to say about this.
That's another episode that I'd love to do about like the photo video dynamic because there's plenty of tea that could be spilled.
Yes.
But I would love for you to share how you feel like planners could work better with photographers or like what planners are doing that you absolutely love.
The I only have one thing I would say that maybe planners can do better, but I think this just depends on the level they're in, but just getting the timeline to us, not the day before or or the week of the wedding. I know sometimes things change, and that's okay. It's just about communication. I think that's one thing. Recently, I've been loving all the planners I've worked with. They've been getting the timeline, perfect timing, and asking, me as a photographer, like, "Hey, Letty, what do you think about this? What do you think about like the timing for, certain, event of the day? Do you need more time?" Just them asking us if, for our opinion, I feel like that's very important. So I really appreciate that. I really do feel that's one thing that I've been loving that planners have been doing, and also just them trusting us that, we're going to get what's on the timeline and what they want us, um, what they want us to do on the day when it comes to, like the couple and making sure we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. But yeah, I think I like I said, I vouch for my planners and I haven't had like a bad experience with them. Um, as we're moving up to like a different, I don't even know like the correct word, maybe different like wedding. wedding level, or just like what would be
As we advance in our years. I know, I'm like, how do you describe this? As we just continue to advance in our craft.
Yes, as we continue to get, I would say maybe like higher budget weddings, you start working with planners that are, well experienced, so you don't have to really worry about a lot of things that you did before. And I'm not saying that maybe some certain planners don't have the experience, but just you can see the difference, right? You can
Mhm.
definitely see the
Yeah.
difference. But yeah, I think, hey, I will always vouch for the planners. Please hire a planner.
Yeah. Please, honestly. Yeah,
Yes.
I absolutely love it. And most planners do this that we work with, but I love it when the planner will send like at least the rough draft timeline or like just a timeline like a month out or whatever. And then, the updated one, it could be 2 weeks out, it could be a week out, whatever it is, but I love to like a month in advance. It's nice to have something because if we come to a week in advance, you maybe, I don't know if photographers deal with this as much as videographers, but a lot of times we'll, in the past, get a timeline the week of the wedding, and it's like, oh my gosh, our coverage is not, it does not align with what the couple wants us to capture. And then I have to reach out and be like, hey, we either need to shift coverage or we need to add coverage because the couple wants us to capture these, early morning moments, but you have us arriving literally 30 minutes before the ceremony or. So
Yes.
love it when we get at least a rough draft timeline, month out. So,
No, yeah, I think that's important because then you kind of look unprofessional if you go back and
yeah.
you tell, the planner, the couple, like, hey, they only hired us for 8 hours, but you have me there for 9. No, you kind of, it's conversations that you don't want to have, but you have to have them. It's like, well, I wish I would have known like the time of like the events, like you said, like just I call them like skeleton
Yes.
lines
Love
because they
them.
give us like the highlights of the day and the time, and that helps us. And we're like, okay, now we can create, especially photographers and myself, we create like, the photo timeline and we go based off like the skeleton timeline. And then we kind of work with the planners like, oh, okay, like this is what, how much time we're going to take on this and that. And that's how we get like the master timeline, right? But yeah, that's very important for them to get us at least a little something so we know that, we're gonna be there for what the couple is, wanting, and we're getting the important details.
Absolutely. And then this next question kind of relates to couples as well, so feel free to answer for both vendors and couples. Not the most glamorous thing, but let's talk about like copyright and like what vendors can legally do with your images and couples as well. Like, can vendors and couples use them on social media? Can vendors use them on websites without credit? Like, what, tell us all the tea about the copyright.
I definitely don't mind when vendors or planners use my images. I know a lot of people have their own thoughts on it, but I've always been someone that gets excited when other other vendors tag me or they're sharing my work. Now I do, I'm always like, can you please just tag me in the what the caption? Just, it helps us reach to other couples and couples can see like who the photographer is instead of like trying to just, like click on the photo. Cause I know on Instagram you have to like click on the photo to see who you tagged and stuff. But I mean, I don't have an issue when, if like a planner wants to use my images. I know people have a different opinion when it comes to that. I just ask for them to credit me. Just credit me and I'm happy. Just let the world know that I took the photo and I'll be happy. I mean, I've had, you know, situations happen where, they used my work for promoting other things. And I do feel that's like a little different. I've had, I think it was like when I did back then, I used to do newborns. I had like one of my newborns on a magazine. They didn't credit me, and I'm like, ugh, great. And I feel that's like I know it gets me sad, but I'm not gonna like maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm not gonna like take them to court for it. But yeah, just I feel like you just have to be respectful as a vendor and also a couple when it comes to like, sharing my work or other photographers' work and just credit them. That's what's going to get them, another like wedding. It just helps small businesses. And I feel like it goes for everyone, like videographers, planners. Make sure you're tagging, the whole team. It just helps us. It helps, as like I said, small businesses, we're just trying to make sure we can reach as many couples as we can. Like copyright, I feel like it's a whole different like ball game when it comes to like copywriting. But I mean, as long as you're being respectful and you know that I own the images and you're not telling people that you took the photos, right? Because I feel like that's happened before with other people. Yeah, that's my
Yeah.
take. Everyone
Yeah.
is different, right?
Mhm. Yeah. I feel like that I mean, honestly, I don't know, but I feel like that might be what the majority thinks. Again, I don't know, but that is my own personal preference. Like, I would love it for all the vendors to post our work. I would love it for a couple to post our work. Put it on your website. Do whatever you want with it, but just like credit us.
Get it
And
out.
that's all. That's all I ask. And, I feel like most photographers and most videographers, if the vendor wants to use their work on, let's just say, their website, I feel like if they just ask, I would say 99% would probably say yes.
Yeah.
It's just simply asking. I think that that's the best way to go about it if vendors don't really know what the photographer would care about. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just asking for permission and not just assuming like, they don't care. And I just feel like it goes a long way. And also like just, being nice about it. When it comes to, I feel sharing your galleries, I've seen other photographers say like, "Oh, why should I share the gallery?" Or why, I should give this vendor my photos. And I'm like, why wouldn't you? You just never know. And I don't do it just to get something back. But I mean, I've had florists, recommend me, refer me to their couples and just because, I let them use my images, I feel like we shouldn't just be like, no, they're mine. No one else use them. You just never know, just be kind to other vendors. And you don't know where your image will, the exposure it would get. I've had my image, a florist share my image and I've had like couples contact me because of that. So I just say like, be nice. Let vendors use your images and just be transparent about it and be like, hey, as long as you credit me, as long as, you say I took the photo, I am fine with it.
Yeah, I completely agree as well for both photographers and videographers because it's like the more vendors that are posting your work or using it on their website, obviously with proper crediting, that's more eyes on your work. That's more probably inquiries. Like, that's free marketing for you. And I've seen it in different areas of the market where like I've seen on Instagram stories where some photographers were ranting about how they believe that vendors should pay them for the images that the photographer took of the vendor's work, which I think I've mentioned this before, but I just think that's wild because it's like, well, without the florist, you would not be taking a picture of that beautiful floral arch.
Yeah.
So, like, should you have paid the florist? Or, like, without the planner, this would not have happened. So,
Yeah.
should you pay the planner? No. Like, I just think that we all should just collaborate, just be kind and, share work and tag. That's all.
Yeah. 'Cause then you're also like you're you're burning bridges, like people would say, and there's gonna be, if a florist asked you for a gallery and you told them no, you have to pay for it, they're gonna be like, well, I never want to work with that photographer again. And same goes with like a planner. You tell them no, you have to pay for this images, or you just give them five. And, that planner is going to be like, well, I'm never going to recommend that photographer again. Or definitely, my couples don't need a photographer like that or a videographer. So it's like, why? Just be nice, as long as, they tag you. I feel like it should be enough, but again, that's my opinion. I know a lot of photographers feel differently, but like you said, it's free marketing. And also you're building relationships. You just never know where your work is going to get you.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, we're getting to an hour. So I'd love to go ahead and start wrapping it up. But I wanted to ask before we kind of close out, do you feel like you have any other hot takes when it comes to vendors working with photographers? I know you already kind of shared some, but any other things that come to mind or anything else that you feel like you haven't shared yet that you wanted to share when it comes to vendors or couples?
Yes, I feel like always have more hot takes to give. Um, but I think just as a photographer, I feel like we should be a little bit more transparent to telling the couples when it comes to like film photography. I feel like that's a hot take. There's, cameras that give you the feel of film, and it's not real film, but you're charging film prices. I feel like that's a hot take that I know some people are going to be like, well, the couple doesn't have to know, but it's just being transparent, right? It's just being, true to your craft, and also being true to the couple. I feel like that's one of like my biggest hot takes. I don't know how you want to call it. Um, Another one I would say is raw files. So when couples feel like they should have all raw files. I know that's a big thing when it comes to like photographers. I'm not sure if it's the same thing for like videographers. Do they ever ask for raw files?
They do, but I feel like it makes more sense for video to give raw files than photo because what is the couple gonna do with the photo, with the raw image, you know?
Yeah.
For video, it's like, it's the candid, not perfect, cute little in between moments that they're not gonna post it, but like, what are they gonna do with the image?
Yeah. Like, well, I mean, you'll be surprised. For us, I mean, they want the raw files. I seen it more when they're like unhappy with the edits, so that could be a reason. But yeah, I just feel like you should trust your photographer. Now, if there was like a certain photo that you were unhappy with, you can always be like, oh, can you like edit it again? But just assuming that we're gonna give like the raw files, I don't think that's one of like another hot take. Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah, I don't see why they would want to store all those large files. Like, they're not going to post them.
I
Probably
know,
not going to edit them. If they do, I don't know.
Yeah, I always ask myself, I'm like, are you gonna edit all of them? I mean, I have had like one bride asked for raw files, but then, it's also going back to education, letting them know, like, hey, this is the reason why I don't give out raw files, or, why are you asking for the raw files? Are you unhappy? Um, and just her saying like, "Oh, I just wanted to see how this would look in black and white because I don't give all my photos in black and white." And I was like, "Oh, I can do that for you." And she ended up not liking the photo in black and white, right? So, which is funny because I'm like, well, you could just like, well, then again, it's like we tell them not to put anything on our editing photos, but yeah, it's just communication at the end of the day.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I have really loved this episode. I'm sure our listeners will as well. And if they want to connect with you, learn more about your photography, maybe they're a couple, they want to inquire, where can they find you on your website, social media, all that good stuff?
You can find me on Instagram, Lety Altam Photography, or my website, same letyaltamphotography.com. I am on TikTok. I am starting to try to be out there more just because how everything is going. But you can find me on TikTok. It's Lety Altam Photo. Um, yeah, and if you want to connect, just give me a follow and I'll follow back.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and I'll talk to you later.
Well, thank you so much. You guys are amazing.
Thank you so much for listening to the Wedding Pro podcast. If you found this episode helpful, we would love it for you to share with a fellow vendor or someone who's getting married soon. Your support means the world to us and helps us reach more people in this amazing industry. We'll see you next time.